This is Hadrian Radio, coming to you from Free Catalonia, a KA radio production.
Before Spain breaks, Catalonia will have to break. José María Aznar, ex-Prime Minister of Spain, war criminal, and member of the board of News Corp, the disinformation media conglomerate of Rupert Murdoch. Good afternoon, this is David Rabantos, and this is chapter 29 of Radio Hadrian on its English language edition. As always, thanks to KA Radio and Cheryl Scott for the opportunity of breaking the censorship in Catalonia and Spain and letting us do this program where that couldn't be done in Catalonia. So we encourage you to, if you're listening to this program in its YouTube version, we encourage you to listen to the program directly when it's broadcasted, because it has the best music and brilliant shows like The Lone Gunman Rides Again with Ian Toth as a conductor. So we really encourage you to tune into the station. This program, we started with this sentence of Aznar because some other sentences that Franco had left everything bound when he died, or that other typical Spanish sentences that we need to reach the objective without our intentions being noticed, or that things would happen in Barcelona last summer, tell us what the name of the game is. The name of the game is everything is infiltrated in Catalonia to make sure that we never get independence. So the ones that are purported as Catalan pro-independence leaders, like Puigdemont, Junqueras, Forcadell, their political parties or the grassroots organizations or the Catalan media or Catalan social media are run by our enemies. So we need to overcome the enormous trauma and discovering this Truman Show of infiltration to discover the truth. This week we're gonna look like, without being quite mainstream, pro-independence people, because we're gonna talk about the Spanish monarch which made a speech. We're gonna talk about the death of the daughter of Franco, the murderous dictator that ran Spain and thus Catalonia for 40 years. An invention of a term called Tabarnia. This program is going to be called Tabarnia, what Tabarnia? Which is the concept that the parts of Catalonia where the non-independence parties have won should separate from Catalonia and remain in Spain. And then we'll very briefly go into the shenanigans in Catalan politics after the elections that were won by the Pro-Indecide last Thursday of last week. This concept of Tabarnia has been promoted by some Spanish unionists linked to Franco dictatorship in a way, or at least sociologically. And it brings the idea that parts of the surrounding of Barcelona and Tarragona that are paying more than the rural parts do should succeed from Catalonia and thus remain in Spain, because there's a majority of pro-indie people there. And we're going to dedicate some minutes to bring about this concept because it has certain relationship with Ireland in one of the concepts. Well, first of all, this independence thing is not something you can invent one moment to the other. It requires certain historical rights, tradition, history, culture, which doesn't apply in this case of Tabarnia. It's like this old film, Welcome or Passage to Pimlico, where people in a neighborhood finds a treasury and they try to use an old covenant to get independence, but then it ends up in a nightmare. So that's what it is, comedy. Secondly, the International Court in Den Haag wouldn't accept nothing else that a parliament properly constituted with a mandate for independence, so nothing of the kind would be this kind of invention. The important thing is that the historical references, we can link this to it, are very nasty. One of them is people pretending to do this are following the same principles the Nazis followed in the Third Reich, because we're talking here about Lebensraum, or space to live, or living space, where everywhere there was a German, they would consider Germany. That's why he invaded Austria, confirmed by a referendum, so forget about referendums. and also Poland and Czechoslovakia, which is how it was called then. So that's the idea. Spain controlling everywhere where Spanish people feel or are. And the other example would be Srpska Republic, which is what the Serbs remaining in Bosnia and Herzegovina did to keep connected to the Great Serbia. Also not very nice example. But as they told us, Jorge Cañas, one member of the Unionist leading party in Catalonia, Ciudadanos, said sometime, we're gonna organize a Ulster that you're gonna hate it, or something like this. And Ulster is the clear example here. They broke away the northern countries based on some super representation of British people there. And it's the same thing they're planning to do here. It's organized by a guy called Jaume Vives, which is the same surname but not family relation as far as I know that Joan Vives and Soler Vicens, which runs Catalan politics. But they're trying to organize a demonstration the 20th of January for Tabarnia. But relevant thing is that this guy is leader of a group called Resistència Catalana, which is very similar to the previously and more relevant organization we run, which is Resistència Independentista Catalana, that we set up much before this. So it seems that they really are focused on us. Some other concepts that are important here is that they're organizing something that could be like a Russian how do you call it, doll or matryoshka, because inside this area that they say it's unionist, there's a lot of districts in Barcelona city and other towns that voted pro-Indi. So this should succeed from the succession of Tabarnia. But then inside that you have central areas that might have voted unionist. But inside those you might have streets that voted for independence. And inside that street you might have a block that voted unionist. So according to these brilliant brains, you would have to cross 5 borders to move around what is normally considered Catalonia. That kind of tells it how it goes. One thing we refuse is this is a shamelessly try to put Catalans of different origins one against one another. And here we should differentiate. Everybody is welcome here and every individual decision is respected. But we have to tell here loud and clear that demographic alteration is the classical way where empire or invading countries used to keep control of areas after military control is not possible anymore. It's been done in Tibet, taken over by arms, and now it has been populated by Han Chinese, so if there was a referendum, Tibetans are in a minority, they can never win. And the same thing happened in Sahara, where Moroccans have been moved there, so if after 30 years they do a referendum, the Sahara can never win it. We are not gonna have fight between us depending on the origin we have. That's what these people are trying to do. These people are trying to make Catalan origin people dislike these people that settled in very specific places, with every right to do it because they were looking for a better future. But they have every right to do it. It doesn't mean they don't form of a plan of somebody to make independence impossible after Franco died. This also gives us some good opportunity because we know here from Radio Hadrian and the Resistance that the Spanish plan is to do a referendum that would be rigged like Scottish one, so we lose it. So if that happens, at least it is sure that in Girona, in the north of Catalonia, Pro-Indi will win no matter how they rig it. So it means that if most Catalonians decided to stay, not decided to stay, but it was rigged into pretending to stay, we would always have Girona. The last thing I want to comment about first, this also shows how Sumate, a certain organization that has been built, it was only a submarine of Spain or a lucky, because they were supposed to be created to conquer the areas where most Spanish origin people are coming from. And the results of this election shows that they have done nothing of the kind. So they have become just a platform to infiltrate relevant people like Antonio Baños and Gabriel Rufián, which are undermining independence from within. But the most relevant thing, and I'll leave it because otherwise I would be talking too much about nothing, which is this Tabarnia thing, is that Tabarnia has been promoted in a a digital newspaper, very anti-Catalan, called Crónica Global. In this Crónica Global, 4 years ago, in 30th of November of 2013, none other than Stephen Bergen, that he's written in Guardian, but he also wrote in Scotsman, and written this Global, he gave the idea for this Tabarnia thing. In an article saying independence for Barcelona, he said that before a horde of Catalan peasants with their Catalan berets declare independence of Catalonia and bring us back to the 18th century, we should declare the independence of Barcelona. Which, if you ask me, is very similar to what these people have come out saying. The interesting thing is that this guy, Stephen Bergen, is none other than the Rupert Murdoch paid guy who was the correspondent of the Times back in 2004, who set up Catalonia Today with none other than Carles Puigdemont. And this Stephen Bergen has also made an article which makes the most relevant unionist in Catalonia, Xavier García Albiol, who is a xenophobe, he's a rabid xenophobe. He made him pass for an independentist and pro-Indian people. So this guy, who's the worst genocide against Catalonia we have identified in 30 million adults, would happen to be the guy that set up a newspaper. Only these two people, not 2 out of 25. 2 people set up a newspaper. And one is supposed to be, or one is certainly the worst anti-Catalan genocidal guy to be around 30 million Spaniard adults in Spain. And the other is supposed to be 1 in 5 million adults in Catalonia who's supposed to deliver independence. Well, those listening to this program should check chapter 3, where we already explained how Carles Puigdemont is an infiltrator. You need to multiply 30 millions by 5 millions, and that makes 150 billion chances that Carles Puigdemont is only the worst idiot to ever have walked the planet. The other 149, I mean like European billions, I don't mean like this American 1,000 million is a billion, no, a million millions, 150 million possibilities. He works for Spain to undermine independence, and that explains why he did 2 fake declarations of independence in October and then ran away. Carles Puigdemont is a double agent for Spain, and that's why he's linked to Stephen Bergen, which is linked to Tabarnia, which means they're both linked to Rupert Murdoch and José María Aznar. Tabarnia, Aznar, Murdoch, Bergen, Puigdemont, it's the same thing. They're all batting for Spain. Another theme of the week has been this guy, Felipe de Borbón, who calls himself Philip VI. Well, we don't recognize the sovereignty of any king, less of it Spanish king, because we are Catalans for freedom. So, but this guy made a speech, he always does around this time. I mean, he has a lot of time on his hands, so he has time for doing these things. And he said that, well, we should reconcile ourselves and time to put independence away and all these things. But why should we listen to this accident of nature by 5 reasons? I mean, he's an abhorrence of nature by 5 reasons. He's Spanish king because he is a blood relative of Philip V, who was the genocide that killed thousands of Catalans in 1714. That's the only reason he's king now. And he gets the same name. Nice, eh? So you put somebody who's descendant of Hitler to run Germany and you call him Adolf II. More or less the same. But this guy is king only because the murderer of Francisco Franco appointed his father and himself, because the line is blocked, so he follows his father. So he's related to the 2 worst genocidals in the history of Catalonia. Nice, huh? But that's not all. He's also king of Spain because in an act of male chauvinism, he overran his older sister into the throne. So not very modern, is it? So technically Spain should have a queen. But no, they put this guy. But that's not all. Because his father has fathered several illegitimate sons. and one of them clearly Catalan, to top it off. It seems to clear they look like two drops of water. And this guy was born 10 years before the present king. So, suicidal, genocide, Philip V, genocide Franco, overstepping his daughter, and overstepping his older brother out of wedlock. And not only that, he pretends to be king just because we have an aberration of a constitution that is no better than the racial laws in Nazi Germany, which was done under threat by the army, which doesn't sustain itself because it talks about equality, but it's not, because it gives different rights to different parts of the Spanish state. It's not equal because it demands a tremendous majority to reform this constitution, which means that it cannot be reformed. Spain has two records. One is the one of creating more bankruptcies in in European bankers ever. And the second one is because no constitution it has ever been majorly amended by the procedures it itself depicts. So every Spanish constitution has a system for improving it, but it never happens because there's always been a coup or an uprising or something. So now it's gonna be the same. So mate, there's 5 important reasons why we don't give a lot to what you say, but still some more, because your lackeys that have prepared the speech for you have made you mention about unemployment and violence on women. Listen, how dare you talk about unemployment when you and generations after you are well provided by the taxes that the people pays, just because you have your grandfather was a mass murderer, and because the guy that appointed your father to this is a mass murderer. So you shouldn't talk about unemployment, should you? But the next thing, don't talk about violence on women. You know why? I think you have, this time sometimes happen, you know, this father to son conversations like, oh, once we should talk. I think you have a conversation pending with your dad. It might be difficult. You might have to find time in between, when he's in between shifts with some people other than his wife, and when he's hunting elephants. You have to put it there somewhere. You have to make time. And when you do that, ask him what was his relationship with the young actress Sandra Mozarovsky, who was pregnant, and some version says that he is not totally unrelated to that. And did young actress happen to die falling from a balcony and jumping to a conclusion and dying at a very young age? So have that conversation, speak with your father when you find the time. Don't preach us about unemployment, and certainly we don't have nothing to do with somebody who comes from related to genocides to a constitution that we don't agree with. We have good news for Spaniards. As far as I know, we're going to declare independence. We're going to tell people about the lie that this independence process has been. And we're going to let the people choose what they want to do with their country. But if those of us running this or leading this movement have a say in it, we are going to be the only possibility that Spaniards have to follow the crimes of Franco and the Spanish monarchy, because in Spain they decided to pardon everybody before even going to court. Well, we don't recognize everything that happened since 1975. We think that this is the same criminal system that Franco put, so we don't think nothing has prescribed or gone out of term, and we are gonna, as far as I'm concerned, present charges against Franco, the monarchy, and all their crimes. Talking about Franco, the daughter of Franco died at 91 this week, and by listening to Spanish television you would think it was a Nobel Prize winner or a scientist or a famous sportswoman, because no mention was made about the criminal dictatorship of Francisco Franco, her father. So a few notes for the international audience should do. Francisco Franco started an uprising, and it was a murderous war that lasted for 3 years. And then he installed a 36-year criminal dictatorship where all the liberties were abolished. Some figures put it that 1 million political prisoners, 150,000 were executed. No due respect for the other 150,000, but that includes Carrasco y Formiguera, president of Party Unió, Josep Sunyol, president of FC Barcelona, and Lluís Companys, president of Catalonia, which was handled by the Gestapo and murdered at the castle in Montjuic. He participated in the Second World War with the Blue Division that was sent to Russia. The persecution of Catalan, Basque, and Galician cultures was extreme. Thousands of people went into exile. It was torture. But one of the worst things, when I was preparing this program, I came about 30,000 children were stolen from their legitimate parents that were in prison. And when they would reach the age of 3, they would be given to the young, the equivalent of the Hitlerjugend, but here in Spain, to the female section of, and then they would be allocated to some recommendable parents, which means like that were in cahoots with the murderous regime of Francisco Franco. 30,000. And it says, in the source I checked, it says, but it was uncommon that they reached the age of 3 because they were given wrong alimentation, so most of them would die. So that has been this guy, or nobody in his regime has ever had to pay for anything they did. It was a betrayal here in 1975 where members of the Franco regime got onto both sides of the issue, so they managed to give a blanket pardon to everybody. Blanket pardon that we don't form part of, we don't agree with, and we're not gonna abide to. So to all the Catalans that want freedom, but also to all the Spaniards that want freedom and justice and truth, wish us luck. Because when the Catalan independent resistance declares independence, there will be a possibility to give justice. Finally, sorry, but these things run deep, it's we persons as well. And these things about murderous dictatorships, people trying to foment genocide and ethnical hate, these things go heavy. And we know that the worst enemy is the enemy within, we know that. But we persons, and sometimes we need to speak with our heart. Last thing, or to finish this, is the big issue in Catalonia is that Catalan President Carles Puigdemont, though we know that he works for Spain, but the Truman Show has him staying in Brussels. So the big issue now is if he's gonna come back to be chosen again as president, or if he'll stay there. Jordi Turull, which was one of these guys that was put in prison for a short time, has opened the possibility that he could swear through Skype. But that is incredible, because I remember having this discussion in the Truth Frequency Radio with Susan Lindauer. Technically, she's right, that he should stay there and fight his corner. But the problem is that he doesn't work for Catalonia, he works for the Spanish. So everything he's doing is just to create problem with the other pro-Indi party, which is Esquerra Republicana. So it's all part of the Truman Show, part of the show. This thing has two main problems. First, the laws or the Parliament Covenant doesn't allow for it to happen. And that's bad enough. But the second is worse. Everybody agrees that Carles Puigdemont has come up second in general, but first in the pro-independent side, because of his promise that if he won, he would come back. And now, just a few days after, and yet again, he's going back on his word. And now we all have all these shenanigans because nothing is clear and they always have to lie to us, and now everything is waiting for the 17th of January where the parliament is supposed to reunite and elect a new member of president of the parliament, and the new board directing the parliament, and then we'll see what happens. For us in the resistance, it's been a good week. We've met people from the inner circle of Carles Puigdemont that has confirmed, but we cannot mention the names because they don't want to lose their lives, that everything we say about the process and of him is true. We've had people joining us, we've had a lot of people asking for information, and we're gonna make this happen. There cannot be any doubt, in year 2030, everybody would know that Artur Mas, Carles Puigdemont, all these names you might know, work for Spain. Thousands of people we already know. So you cannot keep people thinking that the whole humankind comes from Adam and Eve and 3 male sons, is it? The script wasn't very good, is it? So the same thing applies to here. Artur Mas made a monkey consultation when he should have made a referendum. All the others didn't declare independence after 2015 when they had a mandate and they had promised, and all of them have made 2 fake declarations of independence, the 10th and 27th of October. So history, as we say, you can lie to everybody for a certain time, or you can lie to some people for the whole life, so you cannot lie the whole time to everybody. So what's at stake here is that we wait till year 2030 where everybody will know that they were traitors, where the historical movement will have gone, or all these people that are in the inside circle of the political parties, all these people that know who we are right, but they fear risking their jobs and their lives, need to come out and speak up. We are growing, and every day we're more people, and we're convinced that we're gonna gather together between 2 and 3 million people in the next 24 months. We're gonna force snap elections to happen, and we're gonna deliver between 68 and 135 members of parliament, and we're gonna declare independence straightforward way and immediately after having taken the measures to control the territory and to obtain international recognition. And then we'll let the people decide what kind of country they want to live in. Every day we're stronger. We are doing this. We're winning. We're gonna win. Let's do this. Guanyarem. Visca Catalunya lliure!
This is Hadrian Radio, coming to you from Free Catalonia, a KA Radio production.